Commissioners meeting on this Monday, September 18th at 5:30. This is our second meeting this month, and thank all of you all for being here. The meeting will officially come to order at this time. I'm going to lead us in invocation, but just prior to doing that, I do want to let you know Commissioner Shanoa Richardson Davis is not going to be with us today. Her husband passed on early yesterday morning, and certainly we want to keep Commissioner Davis as well as her entire family in our thoughts and prayers. And I don't think she mind me saying this. He's had a difficult battle with pancreatic cancer, and for many years. He was a courageous soldier, and he was a very good. I didn't know him that well, but you know, from talking with a lot of people in the community, he was certainly a great person in the community, very good husband, father, and just a good friend to many. And you know, Tony's going to be, you know, missed. But just before I lead the prayer, those of you who wish to join me in the invocation, I'm going to ask you to stand. And just before I start the invocation, I want to do a moment of silence for him, please. And we'll all stand who would wish to. So we're going to do a moment of silence, you know, for Shanoa Davis, late husband. Amen. Dear God, we thank you for this day. Dear Master, we thank you for your Son, Jesus, who hung, bled, and died for us all. And as we gather on this day, asking for special blessing upon the county commissioners, as well as our staff that's assembled here and the citizens that we represent in this county. Dear God, our hearts are heavy tonight because one of our colleagues' heart is very heavy. We're asking for a special blessing upon Commissioner Davis, as well as her family, other loved ones, and friends. Dear God, we're asking that you put your loving arm around her and protect her and continue to give her what she needs in this time that she's going through. Dear God, we're so thankful for so many things. We thank you for the life of Tony and the way he led his life and the way he exemplified it through the community, his family, and his friends. Continue to keep them, dear God. And we know that when you keep them, that they will be kept. Dear God, we're so thankful for us and what we do as commissioners, and we're asking that you give us the guidance and direction that we need and do in order to do what's best for the citizens in Halifax County. We're asking that you will forgive each one of us of all of our shortcomings and continue to mold each of us into what you would have us to be. These are my blessings we ask in your Son, Jesus' name. We pray collectively. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item on the agenda is the adoption of the agenda. I trust that my colleagues have had an opportunity to review the agenda. At your pleasure, I will so entertain a motion for your approval.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the agenda be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Vice Chair Brewer, second by Commissioner Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Next item is the conflict of interest statements. In accordance with the Halifax County Board of Commissioners Rules of Procedure, in the North Carolina General Statute Section 153A-44, it is the duty of every member present to vote on all matters coming before the board unless there is a conflict of interest as determined by the board or by law. Does any board member have a conflict of interest with matters coming before the board tonight? Commissioner Johnson?
No conflict?
No conflict? Madam Clerk, let the record so reflect that the 5 commissioners present do not have any conflict of matters coming before us tonight.
Yes, sir.
Under agenda items, item 1, there's a presentation of civil rights amendments of display. We're going to have from Mr. Ron Lewis and Mr. David Streeter, Foundation Forward. Jim, you may come forward this time. Mr. Streeter, you're no stranger to this place, and we're happy to have you back with us always.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's very nice to be back, and driving into town, it was like, oh, yeah, I remember that. So, and it's all good, too.
Yes, sir.
So, but anyway, thank you, and all of the other commissioners, Madam Clerk, County Attorney, administrators, thank you for allowing us to come and take just a few minutes of your time today. As Mr. Bryan said, I'm David Streeter, and this is my friend and colleague, Ron Lewis, and both of us work for Foundation Forward, and Mr. Patterson and his wife, Mary Jo Patterson, and they, along with Foundation Forward, are responsible for providing the Charters of Freedom. I'm kindly turned around. I don't want to point in the wrong that way, to Halifax County. Ron and I were talking earlier today and wondering how people are doing who brought us here to the first place, Mr. Ken Wilson and Mr. Judge Manning. So if you see them, please tell them hello for us. But anyway, what we're doing here today is expanding on what we've already started. But as our society has evolved in general, including the civil rights, so has Foundation Forward. And Ron will explain this a little bit more in detail, what brings us today with this document that Foundation Forward has put together, and we're going back to all the locations that we have a Charters of Freedom setting that does not have this as the case in Halifax, and presenting these documents to them.
Right.
And then once Ron finishes with his, I've got a couple of closing comments of what we would like to see you do with this as suggestions, and then we'll be out of your way. Okay?
Okay, thank
Ron?
you.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, outstanding staff. I've been impressed. I'm an old county manager.
Well, you know all about this then.
Well, I enjoy coming to these meetings when I get to sit out here instead of back there.
Yes, sir.
I want to tell you for just a few moments a couple of things. Number one is I met a county commissioner from Halifax County several years ago. He was wearing a big cowboy hat, and he was bigger than life, and I went up to him, and we both had name tags on. And I saw that his name was Judge. So I went up to him and I said, Judge, let me tell you about the Charters of Freedom. And he listened very attentively to my spiel, my pitch on the Charters of Freedom. And then he got to the point and said, now, Ron, it's my turn. Let me tell you about the Halifax Resolve. Oh, boy. But he was a true patriot, and I understand he's not well, but he was a big driving force behind the Charters of Freedom being out here in their current location.
You're exactly right. Yes, sir.
And I wish him very well. I'm sorry he couldn't be here with us tonight. I want to tell you how this came about. As I said to you earlier, Mr. Chairman, I'm an old county manager. I was going back to Union County where I had served as county manager. And I thought this was just going to be an old home day. You know, the old guy coming back to visit. And I made my presentation of the Charters of Freedom. And there was this young man sitting where Sammy is sitting there. And he raised his hand and he said, Mr. Lewis, you did a great job on your presentation, but you didn't do anything for me. And I
I listened to what he had to say. And the young council member was an African-American leader in the community. And we went back to Morganton, to our home, actually Valdez, it's just a little suburb, and we were sitting around the table, and I said, folks, we have a problem that we have to solve. So our staff got together and we began to try to figure out how we were going to resolve this. About a month later, Vance Patterson, our founder, came back with a plan. He had been working constantly on this idea since we had left. And he said, we're going to produce what is known as the Civil Rights Amendments. It's the 13th, 14th, 15th, 19th, and 24th Amendment to the Constitution that make us all the same, regardless of your gender, of the tone of your skin. We're all Americans first, because our founding fathers were smart enough to make the Constitution amendable. As society changed, as time changed, they knew that the Constitution of this great country would need to be amended. When Thomas Jefferson and James Madison went to Philadelphia to help others create the Declaration of Independence, they took with them what they called the Virginia documents. In the original Virginia documents, slavery was prohibited. It wasn't long after they arrived in Philadelphia that they realized they didn't have the votes to make that pass. But they and others knew, as I just said to you earlier, that as our country changed and as time changed, the Constitution would need to be amended. So they put language within the Constitution that allowed it to be amended. After we produced these documents, David and I had an opportunity to go back to Monroe, North Carolina, where I met the young African-American council member. And we presented the Civil Rights Amendments to that council. The young man who had started all this had tears running down his cheek because we had responded to what he had told us was a fallacy in our program. And we're a better organization today for having gone down that road to adjust our presentations of the Charters of Freedom to include the 13th, 14th, 15th, 19th, and 24th Amendment, again, which make us all the same. It's certainly a pleasure to be in Halifax County tonight with you, Mr. Chairman, and commissioners and staff. One of the real jewels of North Carolina. I'm pretty confident that I have visited all 100 counties in North Carolina, not only in my career as a public servant, but in the last 12 years that I've been working with Foundation Forward after retiring. And there's not a finer county from Murphy to Manteo than the one that you call home. So we're pleased tonight as Foundation Forward to present to you a supplement to the Charters of Freedom that makes us all the same. Do you have any questions of me before I turn it over to my sidekick? Now let me tell you a little bit about Dr. Streeter. He was a Yeoman 3 in the Navy. I was an officer in the United States Marine Corps. And he has told people all over this country that he outranks me. Because in his mind, the United States Marine Corps is a subdivision of the Navy. Do we have any veterans here that can help me straighten him out?
Got Mr. Silverback there, he's a veteran.
Okay, I would surely appreciate some help with that if I could get it, but I'm just joking, of course. But again, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I'll let David finish us off. Close us out, David.
All right, thank you, appreciate it.
Ron's fortunate to have me as an E3 go around the country with him. If not, he'd never find his way anywhere or back home. but we do have a lot of fun together, and we do pick on each other a lot. What we would ask for you to do with this document is, first of all, pass it around throughout all of the departments in the county and tell them a little bit about Foundation Forward, and remind them about the setting that's out this away, and that this is a supplement to that, as Ron indicated. After you do that, then if you would also, I understand you have multiple school systems, right, Ms. Brewer?
Yes, sir.
If you would be kind enough to loan it to each of them and pass it through their schools and have someone do the same. Because we are an education organization. We are a 501c3 nonprofit. Which brings me to, if you know someone in any of the school systems, I, as the Director of Education, have developed a number of different education materials for various different levels of students, K through 12. And even the ones for the 11th and 12th grade can be used in the local colleges for people who are students who are taking things such as criminal justice, sociology, political science, for them to come and take field trips to the setting. And I can also give them the education materials. With these materials, they only have to tell us what they want. We give them away. There's no charge for any of them. Then once all that is done, if you would please then find a place that you think is appropriate, as close as possible to the setting, because obviously this will not stand up to the weather as the one outside, to display, and that way people can see not only the setting, but then come and look at this beautiful document. And then the last two things I have to say is I appreciate the support that the local media has shown to me and Foundation Forward on a monthly basis by publishing the monthly article that I write about people who made a significant difference during the Revolutionary period. And then the last thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize Christina Wells for helping me with all this thing. She's been more than helpful. That's an understatement. So thank you very much for making that happen. And that's all I have, unless you have questions from either Ron or me.
Okay, Commissioners, you've heard the presentation coming from Mr. Lewis and Dr. Streeter. What is your pleasure, unless you have questions or comments? I do think that we need a motion to accept the presentation and gift of the civil rights amendments from the representatives from Foundation Forward.
Move that we accept the presentation of the civil rights amendments for this bill.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Webb. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Johnson. And by the way, Commissioner Johnson is a former superintendent of schools.
Okay, well, bless you.
Yep. Okay, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, like sign. And I know Ms. Wells is going to be coming up to do photos, and while she's coming up here to do that, I do want to point a couple of things out. Well, of course, Commissioner Manning, as well as Mr. Lewis, former Commissioner Manning, and then, of course, Mr. Ken Lewis, they were real instrumental in helping put all this together, as you mentioned earlier. Also, gentlemen, you all know that there's one other document that was put out there. That was the Halifax Resolve, which makes Halifax County really, correct me if I'm wrong, we're the only state in the only county in North Carolina that actually has 4 instead of 3.
There's one more.
Okay.
Mecklenburg County does.
Okay.
But yours predates Mecklenburg County.
They copied yours.
So you were first.
They copied ours.
This is the home of North Carolina. This is the home of independence.
Right.
In North Carolina.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Yeah. I just want to point that out. Also, I want to commend you all. When you mentioned about the African American councilman who pointed that out to you all, that should tell everybody in this room and people who even listen on live stream or anywhere else, just what type of organization you are, about how you take things under advisement, take a look at it, and see what you can do about it. And I want to commend you all for doing that. Because, that's not something that everyone would do, as you all know. Some people would, try to sidestep it or sweep it under the rug or do anything else, but you all hit it head on, and I commend you for it.
Mr. Chairman, it has made us a stronger organization.
Yes, sir.
Last year, we were invited to the National Archives building in Washington. Now, for an old county manager to get to the National Archives building, that is the pinnacle.
Right.
And we sat around this big table with history all around the room, and they said to us, they asked us if we would help them with their extension education program.
Right.
These are the gurus for the whole country, asking Foundation Forward for our assistance. I'm about to get choked up because in my 74 years, that it just doesn't get any better than that.
Right. Well, I'm going to let her go and take the photos, but I want to commend you all for a job well done.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
you.
Okay. What do you want, Christine? at
Well,
this
I would
point?
love to have the actual civil rights amendments in the photo, and as many as would like to participate, but at the very least, chairman and county
Okay,
manager.
well, why don't we do this? Why don't all the commissioners and the managers
great.
line around here?
That's perfect.
And come on, Attorney.
That's great.
Put it up on the table.
Yeah. And then maybe you can hold it from the side. Oh, sure you want to come on this side? Let you two hold. Oh, that's great. Maybe a couple more on this side to even us out, and y'all got to get in close like you love each other. Come on, a little closer. There we go. Perfect.
That's, if we're not close enough, we can adjust.
Oh, yeah, that's good.
It just has a glare.
No, it actually doesn't. That's good.
If we're not close enough, just go.
Maybe a little bit. Do this. Okay. Yes, do your pageant pose. Yes, Miss Andrea, get in. Oh, perfect. Okay. All righty. All right, let me get back a look. Let's go. Munch a little bit more. Okay, there we go. All right. 1, a 2, a 3. 1, 2, 3. And we'll zoom in a little tighter. 1, 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Thank you so much. Yes.
And I can take one for Christina.
Oh, I'm good.
What I was going to recommend too was that you just do one, just them two holding it up.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
I can do that.
Do that, make it one with Christina.
All righty, gentlemen. Are we gonna say Navy or Marines? 1, 1, 2, 3. That was great.
All right, you get, since you helped us.
Oh, sorry.
One more.
There you go.
There you go.
Hang on. So it's a little bit different from mine, so. There we go. Say hi.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen.
And thank y'all again. Let's give them a hand.
Thank you so much.
And by the way, Dr. Street, a great articles in the Daily Herald. Yep. Yes, sir. We appreciate reading them. Right, okay. Okay. Yep, thank y'all again. Take care.
I told you at the door when they won't let me come down.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is item B, is the supplemental agreement to lead planning agency, LPA, agreement for the Peanut Belt RPO. Ms. Scott, we'll hear from you at this time.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman.
Good afternoon.
You and Board of Commissioners, you have in your packages a supplemental agreement to the lead planning agency agreement that exists for the Peanut Belt Rural Planning Organization. Back in 2021, Halifax County executed an agreement with the Department of Transportation to serve as the lead planning agency for the Peanut Belt RPO. The Department of Transportation has increased the annual allocation for the Peanut Belt RPO for fiscal year 2024 from $132,969 to $153,000, which includes state-funded local match assistance. So your official acceptance of these funds is required, and then execution of the supplemental agreement to the LPA agreement. And if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer. Most of you are familiar with the Peanut Belt Rural Planning Organization. Halifax County does serve as the lead planning agency. Stephanie Harmon is the coordinator for that program. She works at the Economic Development Commission office with us, and Chairman Bryant serves on that committee along with Commissioner Brewer, and then Dia Denton and Christina Wells, and myself. It's our favorite board and commission, right, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
Our most frustrating board and commission.
And all God's people said amen.
Amen. But if there's any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Ms.
Very
Scott.
straightforward.
The local match, which is the RPO counties, that $7,650, is that shared by all counties?
Yes, that's a portion
All right.
that they pay, all counties. And then the additional funds, there was some match assistance
Right.
that came from the state, so
Okay.
helped us out.
All right, any other questions or comments of Ms. Scott?
That was my question, because I read that last statement that says no additional matching, so that means no additional matching to the 7,650.
That's correct.
And we're the lead county, as you all know. Okay. All right, with that being said, any other questions or comments? If not, I'll so entertain a motion if that's your pleasure.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the proposal.
Okay, motion made by Commissioner Johnson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you.
And the next one, you still up, I believe.
Yes, sir.
Authorize a resolution for North Carolina Department of Commerce Building Reuse Program.
You have in your package a copy of an authorizing resolution for the North Carolina Department of Commerce Building Reuse Program. You are familiar with the Building Reuse Program. We've used it many times over the years. We have a project that we're working with. It's Project 1200 that is considering an existing building in Halifax County, and to support the location of this project and the creation of 50 new jobs, we are asking for building reuse grant funds from the state to support the project. The company would be eligible for up to $500,000 in building reuse grant funds, and this would be a part of an application package that would be reviewed by the Rural Infrastructure Authority at their meeting in October. So I'm asking for your approval of this authorizing resolution. There's no match or other funds required from Halifax County. It's really straightforward.
Okay, commissioners, questions, comments? Commissioner Smith, I know you're a lonely guy over there, but we're going to look out.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve, do you have questions?
Okay, okay, Commissioner Webb, go ahead.
Really, a lot of citizens ask, we are doing a resolution like this, and we don't name the company public.
That's correct.
And they want to know why we're not transparent, because they may not know the name of the company.
Right.
I guess I want to just ask.
Yeah, that's a great question.
Clarification, right.
And when
Good
the
question.
state of North Carolina is providing incentives such as the building reuse program, if the project name is announced before the approval of the incentive, then it's interpreted that the incentive is not needed because the company is already out there, it's already announced, and the state won't approve the incentive if the company information is already out there, if it's published in a newspaper or if it's shown in any public documents. So it's an issue we deal with all the time. I'm the type, I would love to scream it from the mountaintop. So I'm right there with you, but unfortunately, we do have that restriction of confidentiality and not being able to name a company until the state takes its action to approve an incentive.
Thank you very much.
Good question, Commissioner Webb.
But it is a great question.
Let me have your answer.
To add to that, at the appropriate time, if this building use grant is approved and we receive those funds, we'll have to do our own usual public hearing
Exactly.
before we go through final, so it'll come back.
That's another good point. Okay. All right. Anything else? Any other questions or comments? If not, Vice Chair Brewer, we're going to hear from you at this time.
I move that the board adopts the authorizing resolution for the North Carolina Department of Commerce Building Reuse Program as presented today.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Vice Chair Brewer, second by Commissioner Webb. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All opposed? Okay.
Thank you very much. That's
Yes.
all I have.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you, Ms. Scott. Okay. The next item is item D, resolution supporting City of Roanoke Rapids' efforts to secure casino and gaming operations. Attorney Bill White is here representing the owners of the Roanoke Rapids Theater. And if you have any, did you have anything that you want to say about it, Attorney
Well, I'd like
White,
to
before
piggyback.
turn it over to
Piggyback a little bit of what Mr. Lewis says, you know, as things evolve, everything has to change. And when I started looking at this afternoon, I went back and looked up what is exactly NCGS 143B. And it's part of the Executive Reorganization Act that became effective in 1973. I can remember Governor Scott sitting in my office and we were talking about whether he was in favor of or opposed to reorganization. What is happening right now with the casino industry, or with Article 10, let's just look at Article 10 as the Department of Commerce and the Reorganization Act. The first time it was done, it was for site infrastructure development. Then it was later, another section was added for the Film and Entertainment Grant Fund. Then most recently, we've had the Esports Industry Grant Fund that they estimate that next year will probably generate worldwide $25 billion in gross receipts. And that's staggering. And so now we've got a rural tourism incentive program, what's being kicked now. There was a lot of brouhaha over the weekend with it trying to be tagged in with Medicaid. That's gotten retooled. It's all been rewritten. There was a version that was printed about 7 o'clock Saturday night.
now you're talking about the bill or in the budget?
The bill. But each one of these iterations so far that I've seen, I think I've seen about 4. It says, there's established the Rural Tourism Incentive Program to be administered by the Secretary of Commerce. The purpose of the program is to encourage and promote tourism in rural counties on the state border and along major transportation corridors. The program will allow for gaming, which is a new and expanding component of the tourism industry and is currently allowed in North Carolina on certain Indian lands. As many contiguous states allow gaming, those industry business opportunities and employment opportunities are being lost to this state. And it goes on. It's not anything that anybody's going to be compelled to do. But I will say that the safeguards and the requirements that the General Assembly is putting into this thing is staggering. I'm starting my 50th year of doing what I do. And I don't think I've ever seen as much due diligence as they've put into this. It's not going to be fly-by-night in and outs. You have an application fee that is non-refundable. The current bill says it's $500,000. Then you've got an application fee that is multiple millions that goes as a credit to the excise tax. The excise tax on gross gaming revenues will be 22.5%, some staying with the state and some coming back to counties, municipalities. When I first came to Roanoke Rapids in 1974, I was asked by Osbrook and Benton to help them take care of J.P. Stevens. I knew a little about the textile industry because I'd grown up in High Point and I'd gone to undergraduate school in Greensboro. Those two cities are just like Roanoke Rapids. Textile thing is gone. There were 5,600 employees in the Roanoke Rapids area working in Roanoke Rapids at the textile mills at that time. We've had to retool. We've had to change. And this is a positive opportunity. And there's nothing promised. But the one thing for sure, if we don't meet all the requirements and check all the boxes, we cannot be considered for a site.
Okay.
So that I think is the importance of it.
What we're going to do, Ms. Denton, did you have anything that you want to add to that?
I was just going to introduce the resolution and give you just a very bit of background, and that was it.
Okay, Attorney White, if you don't mind, just have a seat there. And what she's going to do that. And then after she finishes, if you have anything that you want to say additionally, I'll give you an opportunity to do that. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening again to all of the commissioners. As you know, the North Carolina General Assembly is still in session, and things continue to evolve even over the weekend. And they are considering legislation to allow casinos and gaming operations at specific locations in the state. As you also probably know, the City of Roanoke Rapids recently held a joint meeting with the City Council and the Planning Board to hear public comments on proposed text amendment changes in the city's land use ordinance to add casino and gaming as a permitted use. Securing casino and gaming operations at the Carolina Crossroads Entertainment District specifically would create significant jobs and investment. Last week, the city also approved a resolution supporting the proposed legislation at a special meeting held on September 13th. And what you have in your agenda materials is a resolution to that effect, which would go along with the package that would go to the General Assembly that would support the City of Roanoke Rapids' efforts to be able to secure casino and gaming operations specifically in the Carolina Crossroads Entertainment District. I can read the resolution if you would like for me to, but it is there for your consideration.
Okay. I think that, Commissioner, would y'all like for her to read this resolution? Okay. All right. Commissioner Smith, you okay? Okay. All right. That's okay.
Okay.
Have you finished?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from any of the commissioners? And at this, okay, Commissioner Wales?
Now, from the reading of the statute, since the entity that's doing it is City of Roanoke Rapids, we don't really have to do anything.
No, I don't think you have to do anything. It would just go as a show of community support is the communication we've received.
And from my little research I've done in the last week, I didn't see Halifax County name proposed anywhere. I saw Anson, Nash, and Rockingham. I think that's a big fight for Rockingham. And then I saw the Lombard tribe, and it said that it's about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, about 9 counties. One of those counties can also be included. So knowing that there's only 4 actual districts, okay, what is the chances of Halifax County becoming one of those 4 districts?
I certainly can't answer that as it evolves daily in Raleigh. What I can say is that if all of these boxes aren't checked, there's much less of a chance to be considered. I can't.
You said boxes checked, but it's not a requirement.
It's not a requirement, no.
And I think, Commissioner Ware, what she means by, and I'm going to ask Attorney Bill White to make comments too, I think what she means by boxes checked is there's already been information provided to the General Assembly in regards to Halifax County that's part of the box checking. And then the resolutions from Roanoke Rapids and Halifax County will be another part of the box checking. Now, I know there's been a lot said about Roanoke Rapids and this and all that, but, Halifax County, and Attorney White, and Ms. Denton, correct me, Halifax County would benefit tremendously with this too now, if it works. And not only Halifax and Halifax County and Roanoke Rapids, but the municipalities, and, locally, as well as even some of the surrounding counties. I mean, this is not something small, this is something real huge. But I think that's what they mean by checking the boxes, and there are probably some other things that I left out, I'm sure, but,
And I think that, according to what I read also, that the particular entity would have to be able to provide about 1,750 jobs. What I read, is that correct?
In a 5-year period.
Right. And do we know the wages or the salary of those two jobs, or they can do anything they want to do?
Let me address that, if I can. The most recent bill says 1,750 jobs. That was also in the prior bill. They've also got to commit to put in $500 million of capital improvements. So that's in your tax base for that to happen. You're right, we are not named in this most recent version, but site that is located in the county and meets all the following criteria is a development Tier 1 county. 2, has a majority of the land within 90 miles of an international airport. The previous version had 75, and that was stretching it from the tip down at Fishing Creek all the way to get to the 75. So they enlarged that to 90. Is any of the following: a border county and east of counties traversed by Interstate 77 and west or in a county traversed by future Interstate 73. Well, that's up from Statesville down to Charlotte and then from Asheboro that way for 73. A border county traversed by I-95. We didn't quite get there. A county traversed by I-95 and traversed by or north of US 64. County east of the counties traversed by Interstate 95 and north of 64, and doesn't contain any Indian lands as described. In the previous version, there were 10 counties, all of the counties down along the east, including Cumberland and as far north as Moore, Southern Pines. In this latest iteration, that they are out, and then has a population of less than 100,000 people. We may not be named, but they sure pegged us pretty hard because we can meet all of those. As far as wages, if they're going to come and put that in, they have to, these bills talk about the way they, the Secretary of Commerce and Department of Administration has to evaluate things. They have to think about how many people are going to be here and staying here and employed. It's not just transient kind of thing. I mean, literally, Commissioner Webb, I will tell you, I've never seen as much thought and incentive in this thing of any piece of legislation that I've ever looked at or worked with. It's frustrating. I knew I was going to get some grief when I saw it, trying to tack it on to Medicaid, but there have been other things that have been piggybacked like that. You go back when Commissioner Bryan and I were probably in junior high and they started the sales tax. That got piggybacked on something that they didn't want to do it, but it went on through. So there are things that you get used to. You have to have them. Again, I'll quote my former boss, Governor Scott. He came in my office one afternoon and said, my father, when he was a U.S. Senator, he said, Bob, don't gamble if you can't afford to lose. So again, I don't think it's something that we're trying to promote gambling. But the fact of the matter is, it's here, it's been here, it's always been here. And I'm not going to try to get on a pulpit but they rolled the dice for Jesus' cloak, quoting Psalm 22 written by David. Nobody has been successful in trying to legislate morals, so what we need to do is get a handle on how we can best improve our location and make the most of it so that we'll be the best place that we could possibly be.
Have there been any, I guess, studies or information on what impact it will have on the local law enforcement? The one that we are undermanned, the police department, also the sheriff department, also the city of Halifax.
I would venture to say that Carolina Crossroads, when this is all done with what's going to be there, and they are not talking about, let me back up. When they made the bid on the theater, they had never even considered the casino because they didn't know where that was even going to go. It's only since then that it looked like it was going to be more of a viable thing. They've gotten there. What they're now being basically courted and saying they want to see a large hotel with a casino in it. It's not going to be a standalone version like it's in Portsmouth or a tent like you've got in Danville. And both of those gross gaming receipts in June and July, about $25 million. I would anticipate that part of their jobs would be their own security force because you're going to have to do it and it'll be out there and you'd be crazy not to do it. You know they're going to have security officers in and around. You know they're going to have security people in parking lots or parking decks. This land's going to be too expensive to have 500 to 1,000 parking spaces. You're going to have to go vertical on some of this. So I would venture to say, and I have not been part of any of this, but I would venture to say it's going to be more of an asset to the local law enforcement, sheriff's department, whatever, because they're going to complement each other. They're going to be there to assist them.
Okay. Any other, Ms. Johnson, Commissioner Johnson?
I'm just interested to know what the consensus was when public hearings were handled.
Consensus?
Consensus of the people, were they for it, against it?
There was only one member of the planning board, when planning board voted, that voted against it. And he did not voice a reason why or whatever else. Commissioner Brewer was there.
I was there.
And there was nothing said against it other than one lady asked me, will this reduce our taxes? Or will it increase our taxes? And I had to look at the city councilman. I said, that's up to them, but I would think it's going to be, you'd be pretty hard pressed if these numbers hold out. I can't imagine that it have anything but a positive effect on everything. City of Danville, 2 months, $3.8 million in the excise tax alone in 2 months from a tent.
If I may, I was there because I was very interested in it. And the sanitary district has already signed the resolution too, because I got a phone call from them. And some gentleman even said, I don't gamble, but I think it was viewed solely as an economic item for our county, our people, surrounding areas, that kind of thing. And I'm like, you know, I was out at Chick-fil-A today, they're up there gambling at that little place. I don't know the name of it, but there's a lot of cars over there gambling today, so, and as I sat there that night, I thought, we don't have any industry at this point in time to replace what we have lost in wages and benefits, those kinds of things. And I'm not a gambler. I mean, I don't buy tickets. I don't do any of that stuff. I'm not buying one for a school that's selling a raffle ticket, but that's about as far as I go. But I think it's sometime we just have to look out of the box as to how we are going to survive. Because we all know next year we've got a reevaluation, and I bet I can't get anybody in this room to say they want their taxes to go up. I don't know anybody. feels that way. I just see it, and again, I'm not a gambler, but I see it as if we get it, we don't even know we're gonna get it. We meet criteria, it looks like. But if we get it, at least it would bring income and jobs to the county. Just a personal opinion. And I struggled with this, I'll be real honest with you, I struggled with it. But they're going to Danville. I know people in the western part who go to Danville on a regular basis, and they're going to the other place up the road.
You know people in this community that are going to Portsmouth.
That's it.
Well-
And I think what you said about you cannot legislate morals. It cannot be done. It cannot, no matter how I feel about it, you cannot legislate. So, that's my 2 cents.
Anything else from the commissioners? You know,
Did that answer your question?
you have something else? Okay, Commissioner Smith, did you have something?
Mr. Chairman, listening, and I can quite understand that it would be quite a economical boost to the county. But in good faith, I cannot support it. I'll just come over and say that as of now, because as I said, what from me to getting over and losing stuff.
Okay.
And what I find oftentimes is these people that see the gambling places, all people that can afford to be there.
Right.
Out here on the ground with them, I see a lot of what's going on that a lot of y'all may not see.
Right. And I understand that, and I certainly respect that, Commissioner Smith. And, but, I think what we are facing here tonight, and this is just my opinion, well, it's the truth, really. It's my opinion, but it's the truth. If it even gets approved tonight, the resolution, that will only put us for consideration. That's the only thing it'll do. That's not automatic, that anything is going to happen, because, this thing is a moving target. And I think Commissioner Webb pointed out a lot of things, about different counties, and also Attorney White did too. It's not guaranteed. Even though Roanoke Rapids passed a resolution, the sanitary district passed one. If we pass one, I'm not saying we will, but if we pass one, there's no guarantee that it's coming. But the thing about it is, we probably won't be in the game if we don't. They still, it probably won't kick them completely out of the game, I guess. But the General Assembly members, they really want to hear what the county commissioners got to say about this. And I think when you said something earlier, Commissioner Webb, do we really have to do it as a county? No, because really it's Roanoke Rapids County driving this thing. But the General Assembly, I know this because I've been down there a million times, they want to know a lot of times how the county commissioners feel about anything that's coming to their county. So, and I think that's where we are with this. And but if we don't approve the resolution, it will not put us in the driver's seat to be considered at all.
One comment on that, Chairman Bryant.
Yes, sir.
Going back to what Mr. Webb said. This most recent bill, Saturday night, which I understand is probably already scrapped and starting over, but there are pieces of it that remain. They are insistent that the municipality and the counties are together in its support, because they don't want a small community voting to do it and the rest of the county not be in favor of it. So there is a reason, and quite frankly, when we saw that in one of the first ones, that was one of the reasons we went to the city to get their resolution and support, and at the same time asked to be put on the agenda tonight.
Right. Well, I've seen other things come up with municipalities too. A lot of times probably the county doesn't have anything to do with. But again, and you worked with people in politics, governors and everyone else, and you're very familiar with it. It's, they always want to know how the county stands about things.
Absolutely.
Always, But anyway, all right, any other questions or comments? Appreciate the feedback, really do. And, okay. So what is your pleasure in regards to the resolution?
we approve the resolution supporting the city of Roanoke Rapids' efforts to secure casino and gaming operations.
Okay, motion coming from Vice Chair Brewer, is there a second? I'll second that motion. Okay, any further discussion? All in favor of that, raise your right hand. All opposed, raise your right hand. Okay, it fails 3-2. Okay, so the next item on the agenda is other business. Any other business?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if we are aware of the time for Mr. Davis's services, but Wednesday from 6:30 to 8:30 is the viewing, and Thursday from 1 to 2 is the services, and that'll be at Mount Baptist Church. And the viewing will be at Woodard funeral.
The viewing will be 6:30 to 8:30. What day is that?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. And that's at which funeral home?
Wheeler, in Rocky Mountain.
Okay. Oh, in Rocky Mount. And the funeral is on Thursday from,
It's from 1 to 2, and it's at Mount Baptist Church, Green Halls.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson, for that update. And I'm sure that Madam County Manager is going to be probably sending something out about that. Right?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's see. Do we need to go into closed session for anything?
I don't have anything, Chairman.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna break a record here again. Coming close anyway. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn to October 2nd, regular meeting at 9:30? All right, motion and second. Any further discussion? All those in favor by the sign aye. All opposed?